Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland, and in this video I'm going to ask what's going to happen about Iran. Well, the situation is this. President Trump has renewed his statement that the Iran deal is the worst deal of all time, that Iran is cheating on it and so forth. He's twice signed off on this deal. So what does that say about him? That he doesn't believe what he says, that he's an absolute moron, to again certify that Iran is abiding by the deal when he then says that they're not. He's got absolutely no credibility. He's contradicted himself yet again. And then he refused to sign off on it. He left it up to Congress to take action. He didn't take any action himself, like trying to reintroduce sanctions. So there we are. He says it is a dreadful deal because it didn't prevent Iran funding Hezbollah. Now that's true. The deal did not include anything about Hezbollah. It was strictly only about nuclear power. Since about 1990, Israel and various Western countries have accused the Iranian government of seeking to develop nuclear weapons. Tehran has consistently denied this. So this Iran deal, with several countries on one side and Iran on the other, said that Iran could continue to enrich uranium for civilian purposes, but that it must not try to develop nuclear weapons, and sanctions were lifted. There have been sanctions on Iran for about 10 years. Prior to that, President Obama negotiated this, and that seemed to be the only way to avoid military action. So a combination of sanctions and a credible threat of military action induced Iran to sign. Israel and Iran have been assassinating each other's diplomats abroad, or Iranian nuclear scientists have sometimes been killed abroad, presumably by the Mossad. At Iranian nuclear plants there are unexplained explosions. Presumably it's Mossad agents are setting these things off. So is Iran developing nuclear weapons? Well, under the Shah, Iran started the first stage of seeking to develop nuclear weapons. He was a US ally. Now, the United States didn't approve of that, but the US has had to live and see several of its allies develop nuclear weapons. The United States didn't want even the United Kingdom to develop nuclear weapons, didn't mind that much. Then France obtained nuclear weapons. Again, the US wasn't happy about it, but it was not as bad as an enemy achieving nuclear weapon status. Pakistan was a US ally in 1998 when she became a nuclear weapon state. So, other relevant factors. Iran is fighting in Syria, and people in the United States don't wish to acknowledge this, but the fact that ISIS has been pushed back is to a large extent due to Iran, to some extent due to Russia. So on certain issues, American and Iranian interests objectively coincide. Iran was also very opposed to the Taliban. In case you don't know, about 90% of Iranians are Shia Muslims. There's a minority of Sunni Muslims, and there are a few Christians. So Iran has a very cordial relationship with the Iraqi government, which is dominated by the Shia majority in Iraq. Ironically, the main winner of the liberation of Iraq from 2003 is Iran, which has never had better relations with Iraq. Syria seems to be a proxy war with the United States on one side and Iran and Russia on the other side. To some extent, Saudi Arabia on the Iranian side as well. So I wonder if we're reverting to an Afghanistan in the 80s type situation, where the US might feel that they'll just back anyone, no matter how medieval, simply to enfeeble Russia. To draw Russia into a conflict and then just mire Russia in a conflict that Russia feels she cannot withdraw from, and having Saudi Arabia on the same side as the United States. But I could be wrong about that. So seems to be this battle for master in the Middle East, with Iran and Saudi Arabia as the two possible hegemons in the region. Now, the Israeli government has produced tens of thousands of pages of documents which claim to show that Iran has been striving to develop nuclear weapons, and that 2015 deal was in bad faith. Now, Iran might have been trying to develop nuclear weapons before that. I don't know. Actually, I suspect that they were, but this is not certain. It would be difficult for anyone to produce tens of thousands of documents, fake documents, and make them convincing. But if anyone could do that, the Israelis could do it. I mean, if any of them are hoaxed, what I presume they did is take genuine documents and then insert false passages into them. But does Tel Aviv have any credibility, particularly on this issue? Since 1990, the Israeli government has been saying that Iran is on the cusp of developing nuclear arms. So Israel has cried wolf. Again and again, it's been about to happen, and it still hasn't happened. Which is not to say that all these doom-laden prognostications are necessarily false. This final Jeremiad might be true. But Israel has also proved that it's not to be trusted insofar as the Israeli government has lied about its own nuclear weapons. In the 80s, Shimon Peres, then the Israeli foreign minister, said that Israel would not introduce nuclear weapons to the region, despite knowing full well that Israel had introduced nuclear weapons to the region several years earlier. And even now, the Israeli government will not tell the truth about its own nuclear weapons status. They pursue a policy of ambiguity. The dogs in the street know that the Israelis have nukes. So other nuclear weapon states, they declare it. But Israel won't say yes, won't say no. So if you're not willing to tell the plain truth about your own nuclear weapon status, why should anybody believe you when you claim that others are seeking to develop nuclear weapons? Now, it would be wise of Iran to develop nuclear weapons because, having observed US foreign policy, they will have noticed that the US will sometimes attack countries which are not armed with nuclear weapons, but the United States will never dare to attack a country which does possess nuclear arms. So if the USA refuses to trade with Iran, that's not going to have very much of an effect because almost every other country in the world is going to trade with Iran. Who's on the other side of this deal? Russia, China, France, the United Kingdom, Germany. They will all continue to trade with Iran. Now, Russia seems to play both sides of the street on this one, seeking to prevent Iran having nuclear weapons, but not pushing Iran too far. Iran is a problem that other countries can cause to the United States. They can turn it up, they can turn it down, depending on how the United States cooperates with them on other issues. So Iran has good relations with their neighbors, not with the Gulf states so much besides Qatar, but certainly with Turkey, let's say Iraq, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan. Therefore, this is not like Iraq in 2003. If the United States did contemplate an invasion of Iran, well, Iraq would make the Iranian conflict look like a picnic. Iran is about 3 times the size of Iraq in both area and population. She hasn't fought a major war since 1988. The economy is quite healthy. The regime is semi-democratic, is much more popular. The country is more prosperous. It hasn't faced severe sanctions, even when they were going till 2015. So they could put up a very much better fight than Iraq could in 2003. And because Iran has cordial relations with China, Russia, and so on, she could easily buy weapons in advance of this. But an attack on Iran would be daft, but don't rule it out. Why is Trump doing this now? Partly to suck up to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, who yet again has claimed that the Iranians are on the brink of achieving nuclear weapon status, but possibly to distract from his travails with having unsafe intercourse with Stormy Daniels and with this illegal donation to his campaign from Michael Cohen.